and fight back with MELTREK. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks, cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maat.
Bibi Toomey, Black Power, Bibi Fahodie, African Liberation. Peace to all of my thinkers, truth speakers, and truth seekers. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Maat. Thank you for joining another powerful discussion. And tonight I have with me another powerful guest, but he is no stranger to the community, Dr. Boyce Watkins. How are you doing tonight, Doc?
I'm doing very well now that I get a chance to talk to the great Dr. Maat. How you doing today, sister?
I'm doing all right. I can't complain. Thank you so much for asking, Doc. And I'm super excited about talking with you tonight about BRICS and the de-dollarization. We've been hearing about it on social media, via social media, really, and in news outlets and from news outlets since last year. And I didn't feel comfortable having, talking about this without talking to you. I'm like, I gotta go. You're like the face of Black economics right now and in 2023. So if I'm going to talk about economics and how economics are across the world, right? Across the world, that's what's happening over there with BRICS. If I'm going to talk about that and how it may or may not impact Black people, I got to have that conversation with you, Dr. Watkins. So thank you so much for being with my listeners and not tonight. And thank you for bringing your people. I see your people in the building, Dr. Watkins. Yeah. So thank you so much for bringing your folks here tonight. Family, take a moment to thumb up this video right now. I know that some of you are watching on my platform. Some of you are watching from Dr. Watkins' platform. Thumb up the video, family. Thumb it up. And then share this discussion, right? Sharing is caring. And we want to each one teach one in the 21st century. Each one teach one. All you got to do is just pick up your phone or your computer, share, right? So if you're on Facebook, post the link. If you're on Twitter, tweet the link. If you're on IG, throw it in your story and say, Dr. Maat and Dr. Boyce Watkins are live tonight. So put it in your story. And also, family, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to Dr. Watkins' YouTube channel, okay? And hit the notification bell so that whenever we upload new content, you will be notified. Also, family, I want to show a flyer here now, because I know some of you run out of here. You might listen to the conversation for a little bit and then you run out of here. So I want to do it early. Make sure, family, that you join me at the All Black National Convention this year. Is going down, family. All you have to do is text ABNC to 31996 to get 25% off of your ticket. And so, family, I'm going to be in the building. I was in the building last year, and give thanks. Dr. Boyce Watkins presented me with the B1 Education Award, and I share my sentiments, the same sentiments. What was the rapper, Dr. Watkins, who was there? You gave him an award. What's his name?
D1.
D1. And remember, he said, he took the words right out of my mouth. He said, I feel like, this is bigger than getting a Grammy or something like that. This is bigger than that. And that's how I felt receiving my B1 Education Award from Dr. Watkins. And so, family, I will be back again this year. And this year, it will be held in Atlanta. Okay, at the Atlanta Marriott. All right. And so, family, make sure that you get your tickets. We'll be there October the 20th through the 22nd. I will be speaking on a panel concerning reparations. So, family, make sure that you're in the building. All right, family. I see a lot of my audience folks are in the building. Peace to everyone under the sound of my voice. Dr. Watkins, let's jump right on in. I wanted, first of all, some people may not know what BRICS is. Like, what is BRICS? I mean, I know we hear it, BRICS, and people are talking about, BRICS or the BRICS Alliance. But, I am an educator, and I know you are an educator as well. And so, how we like to start, with definitions and terminologies. And so I want you to start off by defining what is BRICS and why was this alliance formed?
Well, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And that was the beginning of an alliance, an economic alliance that was designed to take away the dominance of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. And it's grown over time. They actually represent, I want to say maybe last time I checked, about 40% of the global population. And a lot of BRICS was set up because, like a lot of people are, they were just sick and tired of the United States
Mhm.
sort of self-righteously imposing their agendas onto other countries. A lot of people don't know this, but we put sanctions on, I think, about 1/3 of the world's countries. So 1/3 of the countries on this earth have had economic sanctions imposed on them by the United States. And a lot of this comes from the fact that because we've won wars, we began to use uh, those victories as avenues for additional economic power. So our obsession, overcommitment, and addiction to Americanized capitalism has really created a lot of enemies for the United States. So a lot of countries are participating in BRICS. They've been able to achieve a lot of success. China is kind of considered the ringleader of it all, and
Mm.
and over time, it will have a significant impact on the global economy for sure.
Wow, and I didn't know, Dr. Watkins, that China was the ringleader. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised to hear that because the U.S. and China, they've been going at it for quite some time. But I had no idea that it was China that actually, initiated this alliance. And yeah, Doc, I mean, people are tired. People are tired of European imperialism. Well, Russia's in there, but European imperialism. People are tired of. Yeah, they're tired of it. They're tired of neo-colonialism. They're tired of it. And so I can totally understand why now people are, these countries are forming alliances to combat that. And so I know that there was a summit that took place this past uh August. I believe the summit took place. I think it was in South Africa. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Doc. But there was a summit that took place in August. And could you talk to the people about the summit and what came out of that summit?
You know what? The details of that summit, I don't exactly have. But I could tell you some things that I've seen because I would not. I'd be remiss. It would make sense for me to say I'm a BRICS expert, right? However,
Mhm.
in terms of understanding what's been going on, a lot of countries have been aligning themselves with BRICS over time, and one of the challenges that they've sort of run into is that not all these countries are enemies of the United States. A lot of these countries don't want to go to war with Brazil and India, places like that. They don't want to fight the United States, whereas China and Russia are actual enemies of the U.S. So that's
Right.
created a little bit of a conflict. And the other thing that they did that I thought was quite progressive and intelligent is they created an alternative to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank and all this stuff, so that it wouldn't be sort of Western power driving global economics anymore. They just sort of wanted to create their own counterbalance, their own uh, alternative economic system. Lots of countries have been rushing to join BRICS. Quite a few have joined recently, and it's one of those things that exists. It's going to have some immediate impact, but it's not something that's going to sort of be the end of U.S. economic strength. The U.S. has a very strong economy. We're the richest nation in the world by far, by a long shot. Last time I checked, China's per capita GDP was much lower than ours, much lower. And so it's not as if we're just going to be knocked off our perch or your dollar is going to be worthless tomorrow. But it does sort of create a world where, the United States doesn't sort of have the luxury of considering itself to be the central banker to the earth. And that's the problem. We literally, we literally have these guys in Capitol Hill that just sort of felt like, okay, if we decide to print more money or reduce the money supply, or whatever, it's going to affect everybody because we control. We have the centralized control of the global economics, and BRICS has undermined that, and they've made a lot of progress this year.
Okay. Okay, good, good, good. And that's another thing when people started hearing about, the BRICS currency and stuff like that, it was a panic. Like, what's going to happen to the, economy? Is the dollar going to crash? People started saying things like that. And so you said the dollar is still strong, and you said our per capita is still the highest, in the world. I don't know. You said GDP, right? Was it GDP?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
GDP.
it's really all that, mainly per capita, and yeah. So our economy is just super strong. Now, one of the things that could occur though is, well, the United States tends to love to be in debt. We run massive deficits, and the
Always.
the fundamental belief is that because we have this control over the dollar, the amount of debt and the depth of our deficits don't matter. I don't believe that. I think it does matter, and because what happens is when we take on these deficits, we need people to want to fund those deficits and own debt with the United States government. Well, with de-dollarization, that reduces the demand for dollars. So we could run into situations where we want to keep on adding to our debt, and it's a lot tougher. You end up having this crazy effects on the capital markets in terms of interest rates and everything else. In fact, right now, with them increasing interest rates, the government's payments on that debt have gotten to be pretty massive. So it's kind of one of those things where um, it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna destabilize the United States. I think the thing that's gonna cause the economic downfall of the United States is gonna be the United States. It's gonna be our very poor political leadership, because we don't have any politicians that really care enough about the next 40, 50 years to really do anything about it. We don't educate our kids. We don't take care of the environment. We don't do anything that you would expect. We don't take care of our workers. Our workers are being screwed in every way. They killed labor unions. Wages are going down. The price of everything's going up. That's not sustainable. How in the world can people live if their wages are going down, but tuition is going up, healthcare is going up, everything? I mean, like at an abnormally high rate. So I don't have a lot of hope for the U.S. The predictions that I've seen is that by the year 2070, China will have the largest economy on the planet. India will be number two. We won't be in the top two anymore. So you're talking about something that's like more so 20, 30 years down the line than today, but you can kind of see it. It's like a train wreck in slow motion.
So let me ask you a question, Dr. Watkins. What do you think that Black people should do? You're saying that in 2027, this is what you see, right? These are the predictions. What do we need to do to prepare for that, Dr. Watkins? You know what I mean? Like, what do we need to do to prepare for that? Do you think I don't know. What do you think? In my mind, I'm thinking about an exit plan. I'm like, should families be talking about an exit plan, an investment plan? Like, what do we need to do as a community to prepare for 20, you said 20 years down the road. So we're looking at, what do you say, 2047, 2050 or something along those lines. What should we do as a community to prepare?
Well, education is a great place to start. I wrote a book years ago called Wealth, Education, Family, and Community, A New Paradigm for Black America. Well, that was the subtitle. The main title was It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar. And what I did with that book was to I like to try to find simple ways to make a big difference, right? And so in this particular case, I focus on those four pillars: wealth, education, family, and community, to say, what would the B1 nation look like if we really became obsessed with those four things, right? I became obsessed with making sure our kids understand wealth at an early age, like your son, how he understands already at 13 what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to be an entrepreneur. He's highly educated, all this stuff. What if we were obsessed with education? What if we were obsessed with family? Really making the family kind of the dominant influencer on the child. Absolutely. Which means kind of moving away from this false reality that was created where we spend more time on our job and with our boss than we spend with our own children, which is not natural. It's not, yeah. And then next thing you know, society has more of an impact on your child's thinking than you do. So ultimately, I think starting there and closing ranks is very important. I think that if I'm a parent, I'm going to be the dominant voice in my child's ear.
That's right.
That means I'm gonna minimize the impact of what the school system is sort of doing in terms of guiding them in whatever direction they're going. They might still go to school, but I'm going to be available, spending time with them, which might also mean that I have to think about how we make our money as a family. If I make my money by going to work and being gone 13 hours a day or whatever, then that's not going to be as effective. I can't be as effective of a father as I can be if I find some way to create a business that I can incorporate my child with. So my wife and I, we work together. We do business together. Our kids do business with us. They work for us, right? So we're talking to them constantly, teaching them constantly, right? So little things like that, I think, can prepare you for almost anything. And then also, I think just accepting the general idea that the only constant is change. Change is the only constant that there is. So we know that the global balance of power is going to shift. There's
absolutely.
No question about it.
That's it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, the United States cannot compete with China 30, 40 years from now. Ain't gonna happen. So if I am, if I'm raising a child, first thing is I make my child a global citizen, get them a passport while they're young. We can afford to take our kids to maybe Detroit and Florida, but we also, just for a little bit more money, you could take your child to Africa. You could take them to other countries as well, not just Africa, but just around the world, so that they then get used to the idea of being in different places, possibly moving if they have to, being multilingual. If you go to Europe, you'll notice that there are a lot more people that can speak multiple languages than there are in the United States. Here we learn English, and we got Americans that can barely speak English. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy because our school
Yeah.
systems are so bad. When I was in Germany, I was doing this stint with the Center for European Economic Research in Mannheim, Germany, and I went into a Subway, and the Subway guy, he takes the guy's order in front of me in German, and then he realizes that the guy speaks Italian. So the Subway guy immediately switches from German to Italian. And then
Beautiful.
he comes to me and he starts taking my order in German. He realizes I speak English, so he takes my order in English. And I said, this is interesting. The guy who works at Subway speaks at least three languages. And that's not common here, right? How many Subway employees that are trilingual, so I think that preparing your child to be a global citizen is a big deal. I think that having an understanding of wealth, the basics of investing come down to things like diversification. The reason you diversify is because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to crumble. Something's going to crumble.
Yeah.
Something's going to rise, right? So you diversify so that you're prepared for anything. It's just like I compare it when I talk to guys about it. I compare it to like playing, if you play football or something. Use a football analogy. If you're playing defense, you cover the whole field, because you don't know what they're going to do. You don't know if they're going to go throw it to the wide receiver, run the ball, the quarterback's going to run. So you prepare for all those things to be ready. And so the same thing is true with investing. You're kind of just making sure you're ready for any and everything that might happen.
Yeah, Dr. Watkins, I just hate how, it's if black folks, see, we're too daggone dependent upon white folks, and to the point where our destinies are intertwined. You know what I mean? Like it's that, like, how they say that if white folks have a cold, we have the flu. It's terrible. And I can't wait until we get to a place where we are completely separate, we're independent, and we're self-sufficient. That's the day. And I don't know. I may not live to see the day. I mean, I know we're working for it. And I remember Bob and Wally Mubaruti always told me, he said, Dr. Maat, just remember, when you're doing this work, you're doing it for 7 generations from now, right? So you may not see it in your generation. The next generation may not see it, but it's going to keep getting better and better and better. And I'm looking forward to the day where we are an independent and self-sufficient people, and that what happens with these people have no bearing on what happens with us. I'm looking forward to that day, Dr. Watkins. And so anyway, with my son Jalen, we pulled him out of the public, I call it the public food system, or the miseducation system, or the indoctrination system. So we pulled him out his 6th grade year, and he attends the Uhuru Academy, and I see the Uhuru Academy is in the building. They teach and promote. They have a B1 curriculum and a
Nice.
B1 pedagogy. And so we pulled him out, and that's the school that he attends. Jalen also goes to work with me. I teach at Morgan. He's unofficially taking my class, Introduction to Electrical Engineering, and he sits in my class for 2 hours every Tuesday, and he's going through the program as if he was one of my engineering students. So anyway, Doc, I agree with you. To be prepared, or to get prepared for what is to come, we need to fortify ourselves, fortify our families, fortify our communities, and fortify our people, and educate our own. That is a must. That's not an option. That's a must. We must educate our own, and we cannot continue to rely on the public food system. So moving forward, Dr. Watkins, could you talk about de-dollarization, right? What is de-dollarization, and will it actually happen? I've been seeing all these articles, de-dollarization, and family. Even if you Google de-dollarization, that's really a thing, right? Because I was hearing the term, and then I Googled it, and I said, wow, this is really a thing. De-dollarization. What is it, Dr. Watkins, and will it really happen?
Okay, so what is de-dollarization? Basically, it is a global economic system that moves away from the dependence of the U.S. dollar as the primary and dominant reserve currency of the world. So basically, it kind of means that the United States just doesn't control everything anymore. That's really it. I mean, because what the U.S. does, because we're so committed to capitalism, like capitalism is our religion. We're not Christians. We're not a democracy. Well, we're kind of those things, but we're really capitalist first as a country, which is very unfortunate, because I'm not a fan of hardcore capitalism. It hurts a lot of people. But because the white man who runs this country um, because they're so committed to capitalist thinking, they really used the power of the military and things like that, and World War II as an opportunity to really just get in there and really entrench themselves economically into the global economic system in a crazy unfair way, like forcing other countries to do trade with dollars, and that allows them, if I get you to depend on something that I provide, then that means I can control you. I can pull the strings like a puppet.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's funny because me and my wife, we do that with the kids. We couldn't, our smartest kid is our middle one. She's 16. She thinks she's slick. And she for years, we could not get her to do what we wanted her to do. Right. And then one day she got caught slipping. And the way where she got caught slipping was she showed me that she likes money. She likes nice stuff, Gucci, Coach, and all that. So I was like, okay, gotcha now. Now I know what I can give you, just so I can threaten to take it away if you get out of line. Right. Which is, it's crazy, but that is, let's be real. That's, with kids, you got to figure out a way to get them, in the direction you need to nudge them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
so now it's okay if I'm doing that with my child because I love her and I want what's best for her. But the United States treats the whole world like everybody's their child, especially people of color.
Mm.
The divergence between Western power and Eastern power really has a white supremacist undertone. Because you look at the G7 nations, mostly white, right? The U.S., Europe, and Canada, and Australia, and stuff like that. They sort of feel that they have this right, this inherent right to control the activity of the entire world, to tell everybody what to do. And so the BRICS nations are basically saying, we want to get away from your economic system. We don't like it when you loan us money and then tell us what our policies have to be because you gave us this money. We don't like, remember when you have, before de-dollarization was able to take hold, you had a lot of scenarios where countries were dependent on the dollar to the point where the US could impose sanctions on those countries
Yeah.
when they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So getting away from that, if you go into a system that's more connected to BRICS, then you're better able to get away from the dependence on the US dollar, which therefore minimizes their ability to punish you in a certain way. So I'm actually a fan of de-dollarization. I think that it'll create a more stable balance of power. It'll
Mm.
create what you might call a multipolar world, economically speaking. BRICS has a long way to go. BRICS is not perfect. BRICS has a lot of issues, but I think it's a natural outcome. It's we should not just have a world where the United States is the sole superpower, economically and otherwise. So long term, I would say that when you're talking about de-dollarization, going back to what you were saying before, it's really what anybody should be doing. Black people should be doing that, right?
Come on. Come on.
When you
Talk about it.
when you mentioned earlier Black people being overly dependent on systems that are controlled by other people, that's our number one problem. And we contribute to this. I feel like white supremacy is kind of a two-way street. They can assume that they're superior to you, but it only works if you believe that they're superior to you also, and you submit to that. Like if you and I sat here and I said, Dr. Maat, I'm superior to you. I can control you and tell you what to do. Well, if you don't agree, then you're gonna say to hell with you. Like I'm gonna do what I want. You're not gonna buy into it at all. Right? But if I somehow convinced you of that, or I have something I'm holding over your head, then it might be a different story. So the same thing is true in terms of what we even do with our children. Everything starts with the kids and the family and everything, right? So I question basic assumptions like, who told us that, when our children are born, we're supposed to send our kids to somebody else to educate them? I don't believe that. Who says that when I go to work and I finally start making money, I got to go work for you and your business? So I can't run the business myself. When I was in Baltimore and you and I saw each other, we saw all these great Black businesses
Yes.
that have been abandoned, right?
Yes.
Because the kids all wanted corporate jobs and student loans.
Yes.
And I think that our answers are out there. Sometimes you got to go back to the past to go to the future. And I think learning from the ancestors will allow us to figure out how we can also de-dollarize our culture. Because we are heavily, heavily dependent on systems that have shown no benefit to us whatsoever.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree with you more. Let me ask you this, Dr. Watkins, with the BRICS currency, right? The currency that they are proposing or trying to get together, was it reminiscent of the euro dollar to you, because I couldn't help but to think about the euro dollar back in, I don't know when the euro dollar was introduced. I remember when I was in, oh my goodness, Germany in 2003. I was there for the military. I was in the U.S. Army Reserves. We had to do our annual training there. And so I remember going over there and we had to convert our US dollars to euro dollars. And at that particular time, the ratio of their money to our money, I think the euro dollar, $1 was like 1.86 US dollars. So it was almost double the US dollars at that time. We've caught up now. Like we're like, I think to get theirs is, I think it's like 1 to 1.25 now. That's the ratio.
Mhm.
But I know back then that with the euro dollar, the European nations got together and said, we're going to start our own currency. And they came up with the euro dollar for that. Would you say, what was the purpose? And I know we're talking about BRICS, but do you recall the purpose of the euro dollar? And is it that, was that alliance, is that alliance, or was that alliance reminiscent to the BRICS?
It's somewhat reminiscent to the BRICS. I mean, the best way to think about it is that when you think about the euro and just what was happening with the European Union and everything else, is it kind of goes back to Dr. Claude Anderson's Powernomics philosophy. That a lot of people, and most people listening, should understand that economics is it's a game where gang affiliation tends to work best. You know, you have to find your clique, your group, your tribe. The European Union, that was a gang, an economic gang. NAFTA was an economic gang. You got the Asian Pacific Union, that's an economic gang. BRICS is an economic gang. G7 is an economic gang. That's where a group of countries get together and they do what any gang does. They operate on code. They have some sort of code of behavior, which opens the door for various forms of free trade, but it must be built around a certain amount of trust and commitment to whatever organizational structure you created. So your first economic gang is supposed to be your family. So it's not a coincidence that they worked so hard to break down the Black family, because now you have no gang. And when you're not gang affiliated and you don't have people having your back, you don't have people that you can trust, you don't have people that you're naturally going to gravitate toward and work with, well, then you just end up being thrown out in the street. And then you end up getting pimped by the system, right? You end up having, say, okay, can I please, give me a job? Please give me an opportunity. Please let me into whatever you're doing. And you get sort of brought in a subordinated kind of status, right? So, when I wrote in my, I just wrote a book called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. And one of the goals of that book was to help us understand the trillions of dollars in wealth, in Black wealth, that gets lost every year because we lose our economic gang. We lose our tribe, our group, whatever. Even Apple's an economic gang. They have a code of conduct. They wear the same little logo. They're all committed to selling iPhones and all this, right? So effectively with BRICS, in terms of a specific currency, I don't know of a currency that they've created yet successfully. I do know that now the gang leaders are pretty much the Chinese. The Chinese are the most powerful country within BRICS, and China has done a really good job of opening tremendous amounts of trade with BRICS countries all throughout the world to kind of say we're an alternative to the United States. And now the problem with them being the leader is that, again, they're a military enemy of the United States. So a lot of BRICS countries are concerned about the possibility of going to war because the U.S. dollar is not backed by gold. It's backed by guns. It's backed by, nuclear weapons and, Black Hawk helicopters, right? That's what it's backed by. So the United States tends to they tend to find some reason to attack countries that upset them economically, and so it is very risky to be a part of that. But at the same time, though, what BRICS really does, and again, I have to double check to see where they are as far as developing a common currency.
Okay.
But one of the biggest things you do when you form that economic gang is you do what we do when we talk about buying Black. What you're doing is you're establishing trade relationships. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And it has to be built on trust. Everybody has to carry their own load because the European Union, the euro really struggled because England got upset with Greece.
Yep. And that's why it fell, the value fell. But keep going, Doc. I'm listening.
Yeah. England was like, wait a minute, hold up. It's like cousins in a family. Like you're showing up, you bringing food, you bringing money, and you got a cousin that's just taking and ain't bringing nothing to the table. You're like, man, I don't want to be in a partnership with this person. Who wants to be in a partnership with a loser or somebody who ain't trying, right? It's like being in a bad marriage, right? You know,
Yeah,
you're
right.
doing all the work, right? So England felt like they were carrying all the work. That's where Brexit came from. They were like, we want to get up out of here because Greece is pulling us down because they refused to implement any kind of discipline that showed that they too also wanted the union to succeed. So, so with BRICS, you know, if you think of it just like a family, just like a gang, just like a corporation, they're all the same. They all operate the same way. China's kind of the gang leader, so to speak. And then you got the other countries that are following along, and they give China the leadership role because China has a lot of wealth in terms of not just resources, but knowledge and understanding, strategy. The Chinese they make 200-year plans for their people. You know, they're in fact actually 50 years ago they started a 100-year plan for global economic domination, and they're about in year 55 of that plan, and they're already like well ahead of schedule. You know, so they're very good in terms of going all through Africa and Jamaica. And if you go to places, you go to a lot of black countries, you'll see where China has its fingerprints everywhere around the globe. And so effectively, these trade relationships give them an alternative to the United States. They don't have to go through the U.S. and the dollar to make things happen. They can really go directly to each other. It does create some degree of volatility because they don't have the same wealth, though, that the G7 nations have. But I think it's a great move for the countries involved, actually.
So let me ask you this question, Dr. Watkins. What do you think it will take for Black people to become an economic gang? You know, like, so these countries are doing it, you know, and they're getting together. Not saying that we, you know, our country, but, you know, even cultures are doing it, right? You know, you do have cultures, you do have ethnic groups who are economic gangs. What do you think it will take for us to be an economic gang? Because it seems like, you know, the whole idea of buying Black, you know, people, it's like a fad in the community instead of something that we culturally do, like something that is embedded to our culture. It's like something happens, we get mad, Dr. Watkins, and we're like, we're going to start buying Black. And then things die down and we go right back to that Asian dry cleaners. We go right back to the nail salons and the hair salons when things die down. You know, then another incident happened. The Arab smacked somebody at the gas station, right? And then we not go, we not go. You know, so when will it get to a point, Dr. Watkins, when we will become an economic gang, when we will get on code? What is that going to take? And I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm just going to, you know, let you say it. What is it going to take, Dr.
Well,
Watkins?
well, the first thing I'll say is I don't really know. I cannot at this point visualize a day where everybody gets on the same page and the same code because as Black people, I think we're very diverse and very different. You know, so I think all of us being on the same page on
It'll never
something
happen.
that big, it's the same as having all white people on the same page. White people, the one area where they tend to be on code is when it comes to kind of oppressing Black people. You know, Dr. Claude Anderson talks about that. You know, they tend to all sort of agree that Black people generally are sort of the disliked or the untouchables of our society, right? So they're on code when it comes to that. But in terms of if you look at the way a Democrat might fight a Republican, you know, they're not on the same page, and that's going to ultimately, I think, tear the country down because we value heterogeneity, meaning differences, a lot more than we consider homogeneity, where we're the same. The Chinese are very much into homogeneity. They want everybody kind of on the same page, moving in lockstep, and that minimizes individual freedom, but it maximizes group strength. You know, there's it's sort of ingrained in them from a very early age. I taught finance in China, and I remember noticing how the students would just move together as a unit. It wasn't no like look at me, look at me, look at me, right? Like so the way you see a rapper trying to draw attention on himself, you know, I'm the best, I'm this, I'm that. They look down on that in China. They make fun of you if you act that way, right? So
Mm.
so again, not to say one culture is better than the other, but that culture lends itself a lot more to group-based unity than a culture where everybody's so focused on their individual liberties that they forget that there is something more important than themselves, starting with your family. You know,
Absolutely.
how many people do you know that are married or in a family where they put the needs of the family and the children ahead of the needs for themselves? You'll hear people say it all the time. Well, I had to leave because I got to do what's best for me, and it's about me and me, and I, and me,
Very
me.
very Eurocentric way of thinking. But go ahead,
Yeah,
understand,
yeah,
Dr. Watkins.
absolutely, absolutely. So, so I think that letting go of some of that Eurocentric individualism, I found that that has been a key to any success that I've had. You know, I know that when I'm in this house with my wife and my children, it ain't about me all the time. You know, sure, I'm going to get my turn, but It's about those kids first. It's about my wife. It's about this unit, this family. And then there's something left over for me, right? I can't put me first, right? And she does. Fortunately, she agrees. So I think that in terms of community wide, us disconnecting ourselves, or almost going back to your term, de-dollarizing ourselves, meaning disconnecting from the systems just enough to have our own systems that make us strong and capable. I think it's going to be up to the leadership. Fortunately, we don't need everybody on the same page. We don't need every person in the community thinking the same way. What I have found, studies have shown that 70% of all people follow the crowd, even if the crowd is wrong. Literally. So there's a majority of people who are incapable of rising above what they consider to be the culture. And we know it. We know about the culture. When BET says this is the culture, it's going to come with a lot of twerking, a lot of black people getting shot, a lot of drug use, disrespecting women, throwing your money away, being as ignorant as possible, right? So there's a lot of people that can't really rise above that culture. So I think, fortunately, if you take those people who can think outside of the culture, that 30% that are like, you know what, something ain't right about this. I don't want my child acting like Cardi B when she's 7 years old. I don't want my son out here thugging in the street. I'm thinking that that's cool. I don't want my daughter trying to date a thug. I don't want my son trying to marry a hoe. Right? I don't want, right? So you got those people out there. And so what my job is I'm not so good at being a bridge builder. I'm more of a mobilizer. I believe that one way we can contribute is by taking that people in that 30% and saying, okay, let's really make sure you're at your best. You're committed to the ideas that you inherently know are true and accurate, and that you're training this to your children, like a training camp, intentionally getting them prepared to fight these battles they're going to have to fight. Because what happens is that the children who are the best prepared are going to be the leaders of the next generation. They're going to be the millionaires. They're going to be the billionaires. They're going to be the bosses. They're going to be the owners. They're going to be the landlords. They're going to be the leaders. They're going to be all these things, right? So if you're positioning those children of that top 30% to lead, and they lead ethically, and they lead with the community in mind, right? Like, so for example, I'm not just training my son, your your brilliant young son, right? We're not just training him to go and become another guy with a bachelor's degree and a good job. That's nice. We're training him to become the head of an organization.
That's right.
Where he can create 500 jobs, 1,000 jobs.
That's right.
So then what happens is, economically speaking, when you have people that are kind of lower on that need scale, people that just aren't really thinking about the big ideas, they're just thinking, okay, how am I going to eat today? Well, if your son is running a $1 billion company that can create thousands of jobs, and they go work for him, then he inherently gains a lot of influence and power without having to go beg for that, without having to convince people of anything, right? He's a powerful black man. The people around him are powerful. They're running this organization. They're doing the right things. They're creating jobs for people. People naturally follow people that are in an empowered leadership position. That's a lot of black leaders can't get the voice, or can't get their voice into the ear of the community, because they don't have a lot of institutional power. They're not sitting on, millions of dollars. They're not sitting at the head of massive organizations that they can really transform a community. Even your rappers that are loud and they do the most talking, they get on the cover of Forbes and all that. Even Diddy, love Diddy. Don't get me wrong. But Diddy, to be a billionaire, I'm sitting there thinking, well, how many thousands of jobs did you create? Did you build factories in your old community? Jay-Z.
Come on.
If I go to Marcy Projects, Jay-Z, am I going to find 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people whose lives have been transformed because you went back there and you created something that was broad and sustainable? So it's nothing against them, no disrespect to them, but it's a shift in the mindset, right? So you need different and better leaders, and those leaders have to think in a way that scales. Right. So with your son, for example, being good with math and science, when I see him, I see a black version of what Elon Musk is.
Come on.
Let me tell you about Elon. Let's just talk about that as a template, not to put a white man on a pedestal.
Yeah. No.
Let's talk about power, right? Elon Musk is probably one of the most dangerous human beings on the entire planet. One thing that Elon Musk did, I did not know this. In the Ukraine war, the Ukrainians were going to do a sneak attack on the Russian fleet. Musk apparently became concerned that the Russians were going to respond with nuclear weapons. So you know what he was able to do? He hit a couple buttons and shut down all the satellite systems in that area, so the military couldn't communicate with each other, and they had to call off the attack.
See, Dr. Watkins, and people wonder why. Dr. Maat pushes STEAM education, science, technology, engineering, art. And I always say that A stands for art and agriculture and mathematics, right? Technology, science, engineering, mathematics, technology, being producers of technology. You understand? Because when you're producers of technology or you have power over the technology, you can do stuff like that. I laugh at folks and I love my pro-Black community. Shout out to my pro-Black community. But we're going nation build. I said, okay, we nation build. You're not going to nation build anything without STEM, first and foremost, or STEAM, first and foremost. And you're not even going to protect what you built if you built something without it. Where are your communication systems? Where are your satellites? Where's any of this stuff? You gotta, if we're serious about building a B1 nation, Dr. Watkins, we gotta be serious about STEAM education. Who's growing your food? What technology are you using to grow your food, right? What technology are you using to communicate? So we gotta be able to build and defend, build and protect, and so and have power over it. So you saw what he did. He shut down the daggone communication system. So Black folks running around here, man, I'm a nation building. You buying all the systems and everything from white folks. And when something happens, they just hit a button, boop, shut you down. So come on, Dr. Watkins. Come on.
Yeah,
that was a beautiful example.
You make a great point. To build something, you need builders. And we don't have a lot of builders that we raise and groom in our community. We groom people to go and get bachelor's degrees, student loans, and corporate jobs.
Facts.
That's what we do. And really, if you're talking about building a community, what's going to be required? If you look at some of the communities that aren't being built, the question you would ask is, well, where are the builders that are supposed to be building this? And do they even have the skills to build if they were even available? Well, number one, you don't have builders because if everybody on the south side of Chicago is going off to work their job on the north side of Chicago, then the south side does not get built, right? Just like during slavery, if nobody's staying home taking care of the slaves' kids and you're off taking care of masters' kids, then your kids are going to be neglected. The second piece to that is if you do spend time building in the community, do you have the skills to build? Did you get the training required to build? And that requires a rethinking of how you educate a child. You got to think, if you're talking about building a community, what does a builder have to do? Well, first off, what happened to the trades? And we talk about the HVAC and the electricals and the plumbers and the carpenters. If I'm building this house or I'm building this neighborhood, I'm going to need those people that can do those, do those trades, right?
That's right.
Second of all, at that point, if you're talking about developing businesses and institutional infrastructure, the children have to be trained on this form of leadership at an early age.
That's right.
Even if you look on the internet and you look at how many grown ass Black men and Black women we have fighting, gossiping, chatty patty, acting a damn fool on the internet, that right there shows that we don't even teach the basic skills of conflict resolution. Because to run an organization, to build anything structured, you're gonna have to have a process for resolving conflicts. or the unity breaks apart, the group falls apart. If everybody in Apple started fighting with each other, there'd be no Apple. If we're making a movie together for Disney, and everybody in the movie's fighting constantly, and you can't resolve the conflict, then there's not going to be a movie made. Money gets lost when you fight. So effectively, if I'm raising kids and educating them, or if I get the $1 billion to build the Boyce Watkins school system, conflict resolution is one of the most important things that we teach.
Absolutely.
In terms of teaching them how to connect with others, maintain that union, form healthy relationships and protect them, delegation, right? You look at some of the lost opportunities that have happened in the community. Maybe let's say hypothetically somebody's trying to build a great school and they're raising lots of money in the community to build this school, but the person does not have a board. They don't have a team. It's just one person. That's not going to build an institution. You can't build institutions with just one hardworking person. And I say that without discrediting anything anybody's tried to do, but just even the way our leadership is structured, where it's almost like everybody draws on the rapper culture. Like, look at me, I'm the man. It's like, no, you should be a team. You should, who's your group? What's your clique that's behind you?
That's right.
Are you that much of a diva that you need all the attention? No, I
That's
can't
right.
do nothing without my team.
Come on, that's right.
Nothing. You came to the convention. You think I could have did that by myself? No. So
No,
so
you had it.
ultimately, I think the thing is, I think we should be intentional about teaching these skills to kids so they can get their crew that they can trust, build their version of BRICS, and say, look, we're gonna be brick solid right here. Me and my 5 or 6 friends, my cousin, my siblings, and we're gonna develop an organization where we can delegate the work, come with a diverse set of skills, hire who we need, design a plan that creates a certain type of infrastructure. That's how you build.
That's
That's how
right.
you build. And we're not so good. Even if you look at our most prominent, wealthiest people in the community, particularly if you think about entertainers, everybody looks up to the entertainers, looks up to the entertainers. I would ask you, when you look at them, ask yourself, what have they really built that affects the masses? Not like, oh, I got a record label that's a spin off of Universal or some crap like that.
Right. 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 Right.
Or I'm selling some vodka, for a big white company, and I'm gonna complain as soon as they don't want to give me a promotion or don't want to sell my vodka properly. No, what are you actually building? And the thing about building is it requires another shift in the culture that is going to be tougher. It requires a type of quiet humility where instead of constantly yelling and bragging about what you're doing, you're just sitting there working every day. You're digging your shovel in the ground, and brick by brick, you're building something, and that's not as flashy as being able to just quickly jump out there and have something. Last example I'll give on this, because I know I've overtalked this and I apologize, but
No,
you
no, no.
gotta
You're
get going.
good. You're good, Dr. Watkins. You're good.
Is think about the NFL, right? The NFL, the NFL was is something that where you have all these black guys that want to be part owners of the NFL. So they're fighting to get 1% ownership in the team, maybe 2 or 3%. And because they want to be part of the flashy team, they want to say, I own a piece. Like Magic Johnson just bought, I think, 4 or 5% of the Washington Nationals, whatever their name is now, right? Is it the
Mm-mm-mm.
Nationals? Is that what they are? I can't remember.
I'm not
Anyway,
sure. Mm.
right. So, but and that sounds cool and flashy and makes nice headlines. But you remember how was the NFL built? The NFL was built by a group of people who didn't go seek jobs. They said, we're going to create these teams that nobody cares about. This team called the Green Bay Packers, you can have that for $100. Chicago Bears, you can have that franchise for $50, right? The New York Giants, okay, that's $100, right? And we're going to pour into this and do the slow, steady, consistent work necessary to build what we believe one day could become a multi-billion-dollar institution. In fact, I don't even think that they knew it was going to be worth billions of dollars. They just sort of moved on faith, right? So my question is, if you really want to know who controls the future, my question that I would have anybody ask is, at what point in your life or the lives of the people around you do you see somebody pouring into something that is not flashy, that's not big, that's just some tiny little thing, and they're just sort of pouring into it the same way a mother feeds a newborn baby, and you
That's
keep
right.
feeding the baby gets bigger and bigger. Next thing you know, you got a grown man standing next to you. What are you doing in terms of business? If you don't have anything, you can't point to any examples, then that tells you everything you need to know. We need to be feeding those little economic babies so that in 20, 30 years, they grow into the big, strong institutions that our community needs.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with you 2000%, Dr. Watkins, 2000%. And thank you for that. I love hearing you talk. And when you get passionate, Doc, about what you're saying, you start going, you start going in.
Sometimes I talk too much. I know it, but I'm
No,
like,
you
I
just, it
gotta
just,
get it all out.
no, I love it. I love it. You're just passionate, Doc, about it. So that brings me to my last question. And I think you kind of covered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How will BRICS and De-Dollarization impact Black people? How will that impact? How will this stuff, if BRICS fulfills everything that they want to fulfill and De-Dollarization happens, how will that impact us, Dr. Watkins?
Well, one thing is that the United States got rid of a lot of its ability to manufacture. We outsourced a lot of that to other countries. A lot of BRICS nations control manufacturing more than we do in certain areas. So what happens then is that when you have something like inflation, where the value of your dollar is dropping, and you can't pay for raw materials at the same price that you could before, then that can cause prices to go up and make things less affordable over time, as is already happening, right? Inflation's already kicking people in the butt. Wages are pretty much flat and going down. So as you mentioned earlier, when white folks get a cold, we get pneumonia. So the same effect that will be hitting, all of America would just hit us, tenfold, where you're
Yeah.
talking about a world where if all you're doing is sort of seeking a job in a service-based economy, and your wages are staying flat or going down, and the price of everything's going up, and the value of your dollar is weakening, then you're going to have some real serious economic problems. You're talking about the United States, perhaps one day, maybe further. It might take. It's going to take a while though, but descending to the level of a third world country. In fact, there's a lot of things happening in the United States that really should alarm you. That really are third world reminiscent to a point, in the sense of what just how poorly we deal with the homelessness problem, how we our education system's crap. The FDA allows corporations to sell us food that makes us sick and gives us cancer, and then we lose our wealth trying to buy this horrible medication that only just prolongs the illness long enough for them to drain all your resources. And so I would really say that anybody who wants to be prepared for this, I think that becoming some sort of an investor is an absolute must. Part of investing in investment diversification is also global, in terms of owning assets that will allow you to participate in the healthier parts of the global economy. So a lot of these BRICS countries, there are mutual funds that are directly tied to the economic state of these emerging markets, right? So that as the United States starts to struggle, you're gonna be okay because you got assets and investments in multiple places, and it's not hard to do. I mean, anybody who has an app on their phone, I got something called a $5 a day investing plan. It's at my website. It's boycewatkins.com. It's totally free. You can literally, with any amount of money, get on your app and just start buying some of these basic assets with the same amount of money that you might spend going and getting fast food. So what I would say to anybody that wants to be prepared for the BRICS thing, don't just sit back and panic. Start to prepare. Everybody should be an investor on some level. You have to do that in this economy. Being a worker just doesn't work anymore. It's just unfortunate, and it really, really sucks, because it doesn't have to be this way, but that's the country you live in.
And I agree 1,000%. And let me show you something. I was looking for it as you were talking, and I know we're at time, Dr. Boyce Watkins. So I'm getting ready to close us on out, but I wanted to show this to you really quickly. You're looking at a syllabus for one of the classes that I teach at Morgan, actually Introduction to Electrical Engineering course that I teach at Morgan. And so if you look at this, it says the course is divided into 3 modules, right? Specifically, Introduction to Analog and Digital Instrumentation, Python programming in professional development. But if you look under professional development, you see that I instituted a program called the Connect program. Look at this, Dr. Watkins. Mm-hmm. During this course, students will participate in the Connect program. I made it mandatory. The Connect program. The Connect program is a cross-cultural education program that enables college students from the United States, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, and North Africa. I wish they did sub-Saharan Africa. But it says to connect, establish a deep understanding for the perspectives of others around the world, engage in an exploration of your identity and how it impacts your engagement with others in your personal context and in the context of the digital world, and develop critical 21st century thinking skills. So the reason why I incorporated that program into my course is because I told my students, think bigger than the US. Yes. I want you all to think global and to connect with students from around the world. Understand that your opportunities aren't limited to the US. And I want you to think globally. Not only do I want you to think globally, I'm going to connect you with other people around the world. You might connect with somebody in Asia, and they say, man, come over here. I got an opportunity for you in Asia. You might connect with somebody in Europe. They say, man, we got something popping in Europe or Africa. So encouraging my students not only to think globally, but to put them in the situations where they can connect with other people around the world. And so anyway, Dr. Watkins, let me drop a bomb for you. Fire! 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 Fire!
I like that.
Doc, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with my listeners and I tonight. Doc, do you have any closing words for the listening audience?
Yeah, I'm inspired by what you just showed me. If I had a choice between being smart or thinking big, I would rather be a person that thinks big with mediocre intelligence than to be a brilliant person who thinks small. You and I are both university professors, and we know a lot of people that are geniuses, absolute geniuses, but their focus is super narrow. You know how they do in academia. You're gonna spend your whole life in this little tiny cubby hole, and that's it. And sometimes that becomes wasted genius. Not all the time, but a lot of times it does. And so what you're talking about in terms of exposing our youth to the world, that is absolutely
Absolutely.
critical, because if you only think that the United States is all that there is, you start to suffocate. If you think that the whole world is just racism and Trump and Biden and and the U.S.
And Cardi B and
and Cardi B,
Sexy
right?
Red and Sexy Red.
Oh Lord, don't even talk about Sexy Red. That terrible. She's a terrible rapper. Oh my Lord Jesus, he's so bad.
Yeah, she
Oh
sounds
my
good.
gosh, that first verse just made me want to vomit. Anyway, I'm sorry. One of my friends is a rapper. He called me. He asked me about this lady. I said, Lord, man, this is crazy. Anyway, so really, I mean, you think about it like being in a bad relationship. If you are in a bad abusive relationship, like the one you're in as a black person in the United States, we're in this abusive relationship with white folks. We love them, they love us, but we hate each other. But we feel like we need each other. We're always coming back to each other, right? Well, if you're in an abusive relationship, uh, it makes things worse when you don't realize there's other fish in the sea.
Come on.
You feel more suffocated when you just feel like there's nothing better out there for you. But if you know that you've got other options, in fact, actually, when I leave here, I'm teaching a class on options, stock options. But and I explain options by saying, well, you know what it feels like to have options. Anytime you have options, you have power. That's it. If you have options, you have power. If you have options, you have freedom. Freedom and options are brother and sister. So when we as black people talk about freedom, we need to talk about what it means to have options, not just stock options. I'm talking about just options, period. So when you talk about exposing your kids to the world, knowing that they have the option of going around the world and being comfortable,
That's right.
well, that kid is gonna be happier than the one who feels like he's gotta sit in the same spot and deal with the same crap.
Come
You
on.
ain't got to deal with the same crap. So every parent listening owes it to their child. Go get your child a passport. Save
That's
up a
right.
couple dollars. A ticket to Detroit might cost $350. A ticket to another country might cost $650 or $750. But spend that little bit of extra money if you can, and take your child around the world. Expose them to stuff other than the United States. And what you will find is that it's just a complete lie and a myth that the United States is the most amazing place on earth to live. I took my girls. We go all around the world. We're going to Africa next spring, but we went to Europe recently, Iceland and Denmark. When I was in Iceland, I did not see one single homeless person the entire time I was there. I saw hardly no overweight people, because they don't feed their citizens crappy, terrible food that gives you cancer the way we do. The citizens were highly educated. It was very peaceful. You didn't hear about all these shootings and stuff. We're constantly hearing about people getting shot. Baltimore, Chicago,
Yes.
Philadelphia, New York, even Denver. It's everywhere. Over there, rarely happens. The trains. Here we got the rickety ass, raggedy ass Amtraks, right? I mean, this crappy system that needs to be updated, but they can't do it for some reason. You go over to Europe and Asia, they got the smoothest, quietest bullet trains,
Yes.
250 miles an hour, and you just chilling. So I encourage everybody, just see the world. That's period. And
Yes.
take your kids with you. That's better than anything they'll ever get in the public school system. They don't need. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Look, thank you. And look, last thing I wanted to tell you, I've been for 5 years promoting engineering entrepreneurship in the School of Engineering at Morgan, and I'm in the process of also incorporating another program that teaches our engineering students how to establish a startup company or invest in startup companies, and teaching them about venture capitalism. So I'm doing a lot.
Nice.
Doc, we could talk about and unpack it another time, but thank you so much for tuning in, Doc. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your energy, and I appreciate your wisdom. I'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks anyway, probably like
Yes,
4 more weeks.
ma'am.
I'll
Can't
be
wait to
seeing you
see
at the
you.
All Black
National Convention. Yep,
That's
October
right.
20th. Yes, ma'am.
I'll be there. I'm getting ready to throw the flyer up there one more time, Doc, but you take care.
You too, sister. God bless you. Take care now.
You too. You do the same. Bye-bye. Send my love to the wife. All right, family. So look at this. Make sure that you're in the building for the All Black National Convention taking place on October the 20th through the 22nd at the Atlanta Marriott. All right, in Atlanta, Georgia. Family, I'm going to be in the building. I'm speaking on the reparations panel. So make sure that you're in the building, family. Look at this. It says text ABNC to 31996 to get 25% off of your ticket. So family, make sure that you're in the building. All right. Also, family, make sure that you join me back here at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, on Thursday, I have Baba Ashwar Kwesi coming on. Baba Ashwar Kwesi will be coming on to talk about, let me think, what's the topic? I know we're going to go in on that Jada Pinkett documentary, Cleopatra, right? We're going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about his trips to Kemet and so much more. And also King Simon has an upcoming lecture in New York. So we're going to be talking about that. So make sure, family, that you tune in at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Dr. Oya Edwa Maat. I know that some of you are watching on Dr. Boyce Watkins' channel. Make sure that you head on over to Dr. Oya Edwa Maat, or just type in Dr. Maat on the YouTube, in its YouTube search engine or YouTube search bar. All right, click, and when you find my channel, click on it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so that whenever I go live, you will be notified. Also, family, before you get out of here, make sure that you thumb up the video, thumb it up, thumb it up, thumb it up. If you're on Dr. Watkins' platform, thumb it up, thumb it up, thumb it up. If you're on my platform, thumb it up, thumb it up. And also, family, sharing is caring. We want to each one teach one. And in the 21st century, all we got to do is just click a button, right? So share it on your Twitter, your Facebook, share this discussion on your Twitter, share it on your Facebook, put it in your Instagram story. Also, family, text this link, the link to this discussion, to your group chat. Some of us have group chats with our families and with our friends, right? So get it out, get it out. Let's get these views up. Let's get the information out to the people. Thank you so much for tuning in, family. And I'll see you on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace and Black Power.
Let's combat and fight back with MELTREK. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classes. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks, cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maat.